Okay, let's talk about the cost per mile to operate a vehicle. So the cost per mile, what you do is you take any variable cost and add them to any fixed cost. So variable costs would be things that it just depends on your use of the car. The price of gas goes up and down, that would be variable. Things like that, those are going to vary. Okay, you add that to any fixed cost. Your insurance is a fairly fixed cost. Okay, they redo it annually. And then you divide by the number of miles you've driven. So you take your total cost divided by the number of miles, and that will tell you how much it's costing you for every mile you drive that car to operate it. So here's William. He bought a used car for $6,800 2 years ago. He spent $1,425 on gas, $180 on oil changes, $308 for maintenance, $300 for 2 new tires. He paid also $640 for insurance, $144 for registration and license. So all those first values were variable costs, things that change. The insurance and the registration are fixed costs. Those are the same from year to year, or for the whole year. He calculates the car has depreciated by $3,200. He drove the car for 18,828 miles and estimates its value is now $3,600. So these first number, the 6,800, the 3,600, we're not really going to put those in there. We would use them to find the depreciation of the car because that's a cost of operating it, but he already calculated that for us. If you subtract the 6,800 minus the 3,600, you're going to find it's $3,200. So first thing we need to do is total our costs. Okay, so we have to add all of these things up. And again, some are variable and some are fixed, but since we're totaling variable and fixed together, it's not going to matter which is which on this question. Okay, so we add everything including the depreciation. Those are our costs. So 1,425 plus 180 plus 308 plus 300 plus 642 plus 144 plus 3,200. So the cost of operating these vehicles so far is $6,199. How much did he drive? So we take the cost, we divide by the number of miles it was operated in that time. So 6,199 divided by 18,828 miles. And we get 0.32924. We went to the nearest cent, so we're going to round right here. This cost to operate this vehicle is 33 cents for every mile it's driven. So I know there's a lot of information in this question. Again, what you want to do is just to find the cost per mile, you want to total all of the expenses. That includes the amount it's depreciated, and then you just divide by the number of miles that you've gone. Alright, so here's Carlos Rivera. He purchased a car 2 years ago. The price of the car was $24,650. It depreciates 10% of its purchase price each year for 10 years. Okay. The Car Complete Guide states that the annual variable costs are $1,240 a year. So that's, again, oil, gas, tires, all of those things. With insurance costing $1,149 a year. For each year, he also paid $180 for license and registration fee and drove the car 18,000 miles per year. Find the cost per mile. Okay, so far they've given us most of the costs. They gave us the annual variable costs. they gave us the insurance, and they gave us the cost for license and registration. The only thing we don't have is the depreciation value. Okay, now this one, we can't use this formula up here for depreciation because that's not the information they gave us. They didn't give us the previous value and the current value. What they did tell us is that the car depreciates 10% each year. So we start with $24,650 and we multiply that by 10% or 0.1. Remember to move the decimal 2 places to the left. Okay, so this is for each year. It depreciates $2,465. Now, if these costs are the same every year, the cost per mile the first year is going to be the same as the cost per mile the second year. So let's just calculate for 1 year what the cost per mile is. So again, what we need to do is total the costs. We had $1,240 a year for variable, $1,149 a year for insurance, $180 for license, and then we just found out that it depreciates $2,465 each year. Let's total that to find our costs. We get $5,034. We want to divide that by the number of miles. Let's double check. It said yes, in 1 year, he drives 18,000 miles. So we take our total costs, divide it by the number of miles driven. And we get 0.0279666. We want to the nearest cent. So we cut off here. That 9 would make us round up to 28. 28 cents per mile is going to be the cost to operate this vehicle. Hey, here's Dario Canseco. His variable cost for the year for gasoline is $1,748. Oil and filters, new tires, insurance, and registration. And then we have our loan interest. Okay, that's another cost. He drove 14,420 miles. What is the cost per mile to operate his vehicle last year? So again, we need to total the costs. So we just put them all down and add them together. Make sure you get them all. Sometimes when there's that many numbers, it's either easy to overlook one. That is a lot of numbers. Okay, but let's go ahead and total those. Okay, so when we total the cost, I get $3,882.86. And you always want to double check, maybe calculate it twice, just to make sure you didn't hit a wrong button or leave a number out. Always want to be safe. Okay, so now that we've totaled our costs, we want to go ahead and find the cost per mile. So did they tell us how many miles he operated the vehicle? Yes, they did. They said in that year, he operated the vehicle for 14,420 miles. So we just take our total costs, divide by the number of miles that it was driven. And we get 0.26926. Again, we want this to the nearest cent, which is 2 places after the decimal. This 9 here makes our 6 round up to a 7. So it costs 27 cents per mile for Dario to operate this vehicle.